difficult, so profoundly disturbing. If Donald Trump can actually give instructions to Republicans in the House of Representatives to kill bipartisan legislation from the Senate, which would have given aid to Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan, there is something seriously wrong. There was a time when if a president or a former president had tried to instruct Democrats or Republicans in the House, they would have stood up and just said, goodbye, we're not going to deal with you. And the fact that the Republican Party has no guts, no spine, I mean, I was a Republican for years, Beowulf. I worked for Richard Nixon. I understand what an effective Republican president can be. I understand why I was an Eisenhower Republican. If Dwight Eisenhower, Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, Ronald Reagan were alive, they'd be rolling over in their graves at what the Republican Party is today.
Indeed. It's such a completely different animal in such a completely different era. I remember when Lyndon Johnson, when he was shifting over to the vice presidency, had designs on still maintaining a presence on Capitol Hill.
He wanted control. He wanted still to be the Democratic leader in the United States Senate. Right. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, and they people who agreed with him and were under his sway as a majority leader stood up when they never would have before, and because of the prerogatives of the Senate, that august body, they said, no, this cannot be. And now we've come to the point, 64 years later, where they are bowing and scraping to someone who is not even in office because of his influence.
It shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
The brilliance of the founding fathers was the idea of balance of power.
Yeah.
It's not only the presidency, it's the Congress, and yes, the judiciary. And we now have a major test coming up for the judiciary. We talked a little bit about it last week. I think Trump will be affirmed in terms of being on the ballot. I think the Supreme Court will uphold that, and I frankly believe that's the case. It ought to be. But when it comes to a president claiming immunity on everything he did as president, the Supreme Court will never uphold that. And if they did, any confidence we had in the Supreme Court would be shattered. So this is another key issue. And by the way, in many ways, more important than this question of Donald Trump's ballot position. Because if the idea of presidential immunity is extended in this fashion, not only to this president, but to future presidents, we will honestly be able to say that the president is above the law.
Exactly. This is the ultimate extension of Richard Nixon's claim that if the president does it, it is not illegal. I mean,
which you could play, by the way. Anybody can play it. All you have to do is go to the David Frost interviews. That's where Nixon made the statement.
Yeah, absolutely. A vastly different era. And John, it does not hearten me to go through it. But if I must go through it, I am so glad to be guided by you and your wisdom and your knowledge. John Rothmann, the host of Around the Political World with John Rothmann. 10 minutes a day of your time is all it takes to get all the perspective and knowledge you need on the key political issues of the day. John.
May I wish you, Beowulf, and all our listeners a very happy Abraham Lincoln's birthday. Let's remember what the Republican Party once was. And you and I have a date next Monday on President's Day, and we will, I hope, among other things, discuss the nature of the American presidency. And may I say, sir, I would lead off with Hail to the Chief, because after all, you are the chief of this broadcast.
It will be so, John. Thank you so much. Talk soon.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you downloading this podcast or any other way that you happen to consume it. I want to thank Ace Elson and Rosabelle Hine for being the producers. And I want to thank you and ask you, if you could, to share a link to this podcast on social media so that your friends will know about it, so that they will hear the kinds of folks that we have on. It really helps what we do here at Facepalm America. And until next time, enjoy the day.